Okay, so we will start today with some analytical equations, fundamental equations related to the operation of a synchronous generator, which will help us understand exactly how it is operating and also analyze the behavior in a given situation. So the first thing, let's look at the speed of rotation of a synchronous generator and how it is related to the frequency and the electrical quantities. So as we have already discussed, and you might be aware that synchronous generators by name, they are known as the word synchronous means that there is some synchronism, there is a locking between the mechanical speed and the electrical frequency. So that's why it says here that by definition synchronous, meaning that the electrical frequency produced is locked in or synchronized with the mechanical rate of rotation of the generator. That is an important feature of the synchronous generator. What is the rotation? The rotational speed of the rotor, mechanical rotational speed of the rotor, is what determines the frequency of the generator output. And because we want the generator to be, the output power to be at a fixed frequency, as I discussed in an earlier class also, that frequency is a very critical parameter, and we always want it to be constant, as steady as possible. So there is a very small band, let's say around 1% or at max 2% of fluctuation which can be allowed in frequency. So we want it to be completely steady. And this frequency now depends on the rate of rotation of the generator. What is the speed of rotation of the generator? So we will look at it today, how it is related and what is the relationship between the two. So the relationship is given as follows. The electrical frequency FSE, S indicates the subscript stator. So it is the frequency of the current and voltage induced in the stator winding or the armature winding, which is on the stator. So this frequency, which is electrical frequency, therefore E and S, because it is on the stator we are talking about. So this electrical frequency induced in the armature winding on the stator is given by this simple equation Nm into P divided by 120. Now here Nm is the mechanical speed of rotation. So it is the speed of the magnetic field. I mean, conceptually it is magnetic field, but in this case, in a synchronous generator, it is also equal to the speed of the rotor. And it is here the unit of Nm is revolutions per minute, RPM. And P is the number of poles in the machine. So why can someone tell me why it is, as it says here, the mechanical speed of the magnetic field is same as the speed of the rotor? Why is that statement true for a synchronous generator?
So because that's what a synchronous generator is. Sir, this is the specialty of synchronous generator, that mechanical speed is same as the electrical speed.
No. See, here we are saying that the mechanical speed of the magnetic field is same as the speed of the rotor. So what is the speed at which you are rotating the rotor? The same speed the magnetic field is also rotating. So why is that so? I mean, it's a very simple thing. Anyone can say.
I think because only there is no relative motion in between the armature winding and the field winding.
Who is saying that? I can't. Shivam.
Yes, sir.
Okay. No, see, it's
Sir,
very simple.
Maybe it's because the field winding is mounted on rotor itself. That is why.
That's it. Yeah. It's very simple. I just wanted to see whether you're following or not. Yeah, very true. Simple and straightforward thing, because you have your you have the field winding which is generating the magnetic field that is mounted on the rotor, and it is a DC winding, so there is no variation in the field due to the variation in the current. The field current is steady. The only variation or the motion of the magnetic field is due to the mechanical motion of the rotor. So that is the reason. So that's straightforward. So this is the speed, synchronous speed. Nm is the synchronous speed in RPM, which is same as the speed of rotation, the mechanical rotation of the rotor. And as we just now said, that this is due to the simple fact that your field winding is placed on the rotor and the field winding is applied by a DC current, which is, so if the rotor is steady, if it is, if it's not moving, if it is stationary, then the field is also stationary because it's a DC field, and if you DC current, and if you start rotating the rotor at a given speed, then the field also rotates at the same speed being generated from a DC current. Okay, so this is there. So
Actually,
now,
sir,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt. I wanted to ask something.
Hmm.
The
This is Nitish.
yes
Nitish
sir,
is
this is
yeah.
Nitish. Sir, जो रोटर होता है हमारा, तो the magnetic field that it produces, field the this DC due to DC, so is it like radially outward in every cross section? Like I don't know how to ask.
Yeah, the
मतलब,
direction of the magnetic field will be radially outward. You are correct. So if you recall, if you, specifically if you talk in case of a synchronous, the salient pole rotor, which we discussed last class,
yes, sir.
is that if you recall that there are pole shoes which are protruding out from the
Yes, sir.
cylindrical core of the rotor, and along those pole shoes there is a winding which has been wound.
Yes, sir.
So again, that same Fleming's right hand rule. If you bind your fingers along the direction of the current in which
Right.
the current is flowing in these windings, then the thumb points in the direction of the magnetic field, which is
And
perpendicular.
means radially outward throughout its
Yeah.
length. If this can be said.
Yeah, radially, it's radially outward. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
it's profile cross section.
And sir, I saw some pictures of this synchronous generator winding. So it is just because this key, like you said, that laminations are stacked. So as we know, कि जो hysteresis loss होता है, that is in the perpendicular direction to the magnetic field. So that is why, like ऐसा मैंने एक like image में देखा कि उसमें छोटे दो इमेज देखी एक्चुअली मैंने. एक तो जैसा आपने बोला था कि they are stacked laminations are. Then I saw a picture in which there was something like how to tell you. I don't know. Okay, am I visible?
Yeah.
Sir, one thing was like this.
Your notebook is not visible really.
Oh, okay.
It's getting blurred.
Okay, I will find how to tell you this. Then we'll ask you.
Maybe you can change your video setting because your face is clearly visible, but your notebook is blurred.
नीतीश बैकग्राउंड चेंज कर दे अपना, बैकग्राउंड हटा दे, ब्लर हो रहा है उसकी वजह से.
Okay. Yes, sir. Is it no? It is
Yeah,
visible.
now it's visible. Right.
तो सर मैंने एक चीज देखी थी कि like you said कि
That's visible.
the lamination are stocked in this way, so this one after the other throughout its length. तो that I understood कि ठीक है क्योंकि magnetic field will be in this direction, तो इसको ऐसा करना पड़ेगा. But in some images I saw something like this कि suppose this is length and there was like these type of things. So what are they for? Like
So those are the slots for carrying the winding, right? In a cylindrical rotor, you'll have the slots along the length which will carry the winding in it. So the conductor will be placed there. That is for a cylindrical.
So okay. So that image was okay, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So any other question anyone is having?
Sir, I have one question. Pramod Patidar.
Yes, Pramod. Yeah.
Sir, as we know that field winding is mounted on the rotor, which induces the EMF. Sir, so is there any option that we can increase that magnetic flux generated?
Yeah, so we'll come to that in today's class, maybe when we discuss it analytically. So basically, that magnetic flux which is being produced is directly proportional to the field current. So the current, the DC current which you're supplying to the field winding, as you increase it, it increases proportionately, but only till the saturation range. There is a range in which the core is unsaturated. Once the core saturation sets in, then it tapers off. So we will come to that. It is known as a magnetization curve. We'll come to that.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Any question? Anyone else is having? Okay, so let's move ahead with today's discussion. So this is the fundamental thing. So now, if you see, the frequency of supply is fixed. In India, it is fixed at 50 hertz. And if you go to some other countries like US and all, it is fixed at 60 hertz. So there are these two standards which are followed across the globe. Some countries have 50 hertz standard, some have 60 hertz. So in India, you have 50 hertz frequency. So if the frequency is fixed at 50 hertz, and now you can see this 120 is anyways constant. So there is a direct relationship between the number of poles and the synchronous speed. So if, let's say, if it is a 2-pole machine, there are only 2 poles, then what will be the synchronous speed?
3000.
Right, straightforward, you get 50 into 120 by 2, so 3000. So that is the maximum speed in India, right? If you have any synchronous generator operating in the Indian conditions, then the maximum possible, because the minimum number of poles possible is 2, therefore the maximum speed, synchronous speed possible is 3000 RPM. If you have the same thing in US, then because the frequency would be 60 hertz, and then with the minimum number of poles is 2, the maximum speed possible is 3600 RPM. So that is the range which is the maximum for the synchronous speed. And accordingly, as you go on increasing the number of poles, the synchronous speed will come down. Now let's say if we have a 10-pole machine, what will be the value of the synchronous speed for that?
600
RPM, right? So that's why, if you recall, even if you go back and refer to the notes which I shared with you yesterday on Teams, if you go and see there, you'll find that that is also the reason why it says that the hydro generators, the hydroelectric generators, always have a large number of poles, because so as to bring down the synchronous speed at which it is operating, because frequency you cannot play around with. So, and you might recall, we discussed earlier that the hydro generators will have their speed in the range of 80 RPM to 1000 RPM. So therefore, they will have a large number of poles. Whereas your turbo generators, which are used with steam turbines in thermal power plants, they usually have either 2 or 4. They are usually 2 or 4 pole machines. So the speed will be, the synchronous speed will be either 1500 RPM or 3000 RPM, like that. So let's little bit try to look at the. Anyone having any question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Anvesh.
Sir, actually, if I means how it is happening physically means if number of pole increases, then speed decreases.
I'm going to that.
Like, okay.
I'm
Okay.
going to that. Anyone else is having anything? Let's try to understand it conceptually, that what is happening actually here, how the electrical frequency and speed of magnetic field rotation are related. It's very conceptual and very intuitive, you can say. You can just very intuitively understand this thing. So I couldn't find a figure with the poles on the rotor. So here I have a figure with the poles on the stator, but it is exactly the same either way, because it's a relative motion. So either the rotor is rotating, the magnetic field is on the rotor, or the magnetic field is in the stator. The idea is basically the relative motion between the rotor and the stator. So that's why the figure here shows the magnetic field on the stator, but please be clear that this is not the case for a synchronous generator in our example here, because in our example, your this magnetic field will be on the rotor. But anyways, so the idea is that here that there are 2 poles. Now, as you can understand, in our case, what we are saying is that the two poles are on the rotor and the rotor is rotating. So as the rotor starts rotating, we said that there will be an induced EMF because there is a relative motion between the rotor magnetic field and the stationary stator coils. So as the rotor completes one revolution, completes one complete revolution around its axis, then this the magnetic field will have completed one entire cycle across the each of the coils. So here there are these three coils, A dash, B dash, and C dash. Each one is a coil corresponding to one particular phase. So as we said, these machines are usually three-phase machines. Therefore, each phase is having one set of coils, A dash, B dash, and C dash. So what will happen is that as the rotor will complete one round of revolution, one complete physical rotation across its axis, the magnetic field will also have covered one complete set of revolution across the coils. So the electrical revolution and the mechanical revolution are exactly the same in this case. So what is happening here is that in this case, as it says here, the magnetic poles complete one mechanical rotation around the stator surface for each electrical cycle of the applied current. In our case, for each electrical cycle of the generated voltage, because this is the case of a motor they are talking about. So please keep that in mind. So as the magnetic pole, as the mechanical rotation completes one cycle, same way the generated current or the voltage which is generated in the stator winding, that also completes one full electrical cycle. So in this case, the mechanical speed of rotation is same as the electrical speed of rotation. So that's why here we can say, so this FSE is nothing but the electrical frequency in hertz, and FSM is the mechanical speed in radians per second. So these are exactly the same. So this is the case of a two-pole thing. And also, if you look at the winding sequence as it goes here, as this thing goes around, is that it will go as A, C dash, B, A dash, C, B dash. Okay, so we are taking it in the counterclockwise direction. So starting from A, let's say if we start, sequence will be A, C dash, B, A dash, C, and B dash. So this will be the simple case with a two-pole thing. Now what would happen, suppose if instead of a two-pole machine, we have a four-pole machine, something like this. So in this four-pole machine, what will happen is that, as you can see, the sequence here gets repeated, the same sequence AC dash, BA dash, CB dash. This gets repeated twice. So you start from here, A, C dash, B, A dash, C, B dash. This completes one half. Another half, again A, C dash, B, A dash, C, B dash. So in one revolution, you are completing two cycles. And also, if you try to understand it conceptually, as you can see, as you can probably make it out, is that now because this rotor, now in our case, we are talking about the magnetic field on the rotor. So the poles will be on the rotor. So there is north, south, and these poles will always be alternate. So if you start from any direction, if you go clockwise also, let's say, so north, then south, then north, and then south. So as this thing starts rotating, as you can understand now, even for half rotation, as the rotor rotates half, completes half revolution, then also one pair of poles are completely crossed across a given coil. So for a given coil, the entire cycle, entire waveform of voltage or current is generated just by half revolution of the rotor. And as this rotor completes full revolution, then in that case, it will generate two cycles because two pair of poles have passed across each coil. So for one full rotation of the rotor, mechanical rotation of the rotor, what you will see is that two cycles of voltage waveform are generated in each coil. So what this means basically here is that the number of electrical degrees which are covered in a given time span are double of the number of mechanical degrees covered. So if the mechanical degrees covered by the rotor is 180 degree, the electrical degrees in terms of the waveform which we are generating, the voltage and current waveform. So for 180 degree rotation of the rotor, we are generating one full cycle. That means 360 degree of voltage or current waveform. And accordingly, if it completes one full mechanical rotation, 360 degrees, then we have two waveforms. So that means 720 electrical degrees. So the electrical degrees generated is just the double of the mechanical degrees generated. So in this case, for 4-pole machine, if you just divide it by time either side, we see that the frequency of electrical current or voltage generated is double the speed of rotation, 2 into FSM. And same way, if you just extend this logic intuitively also, you can think of it, if you have a 6-pole machine, so that means what happens is that in one rotation, 3 pole pairs pass across each coil, so 3 waveform cycles are generated. So one mechanical rotation corresponds to 3 cycles of the electrical voltage or current generated. So if we generalize by induction, if we generalize, what we can say is that in general, if the number of poles is P, then for one mechanical rotation, the number of electrical degrees which will be generated is P by 2. So for 2-pole machine, it will be same. For 4-pole machine, one rotation will correspond to 2 cycles of generated voltage. For 6-pole machine, it will correspond to 3 cycles of generated voltage and current, and so on. And therefore, we can generalize it in this form, that your frequency of generated voltage and current is equal to P by 2 into FSM, which is nothing but the your RPS, revolutions per second. Or so if you replace this FSM in terms of RPM, revolutions per minute, then you can put here instead of SM, you put NSM 60, and this becomes like this. So that is how this relationship is there. Okay, so that is the relationship between the mechanical RPM of the machine and the electrical frequency generated. Any questions on this? Clear for everyone? Anything, any doubt you have?
No, sir, no questions.
Sir,
Yeah.
hello, sir.
Yes,
Sir,
Anish.
sir, during the rotation, there is a chance of repulsion also.
What do you mean by repulsion?
Sir, between the poles, means when it is north and north.
Right, very true.
So, sir, how it will manage speed? It constant speed,
See,
how it will?
Yeah, so see, try to understand what is happening here. What is the input and output? If you look at things conceptually, it will be very clear. So here, the machine is not rotating due to the attraction or repulsion between the poles. That is not the driving force. The driving force is that the shaft of the rotor has been coupled to a prime mover. This prime mover is rotating at some speed, so the shaft is rotating at a given speed. So that is the driving force. Okay, so the mechanical power is coming from the prime mover, and due to that this rotation is there, and due to that there is a voltage and current which is generated, and that you are drawing out as the electrical power output. So actually that is how the relationship is there. So actually what you are talking in terms of the repulsion or attraction between the poles, that is actually a secondary effect. So, and that will be more prominent for a salient pole rotor where the poles are protruding, because in that case the air gap also varies. So this secondary effect due to the attraction or repulsion between the poles will actually be, it will be in opposition to the main field, and it is known as the armature reaction. So we will not go in much details of that. Those concepts are there. If someone is interested, you can look at it. But because this is an interdisciplinary class with a different background students, we'll not go too much into detail. But and conceptually, I'll discuss is that it is known as the armature reaction. So the current, let's look at this machine this way: that you are giving the mechanical power input, and there is a DC field winding on the rotor, and it is rotating. So there is a magnetic field, rotating magnetic field, which is established. Due to this magnetic field, as we said, there is a current and voltage and a current induced in the stator. Now, as this current gets induced in the stator, now this armature current which is flowing in the stator, this armature current also has a magnetic field, because wherever there is a current, there is a magnetic field. So this, as you mentioned about the repulsion and attraction, so basically this particular armature current which is having its own magnetic field, that will always be, it will be much weaker, but it will be in repulsion to the main magnetic field. And the effect it will have is that it will distort, it might distort the main magnetic field, or it might also reduce the magnitude at some points. So whatever is the effect, the distortion effect, or the the reverse effect of the armature current on the main magnetic field, that is known as armature reaction, and that is accounted for when we look at the model or the equation of the machine. Then that is considered as an opposing force, or as a sort of a something which is dissipating the power in a basically a loss in the machine, you can think of. So we'll come to that when we go to the equation. While we go to the equation of the machine, equivalent equation. So that is how it is accounted for. It is just a, you can say, a distortion effect and a loss effect which will be accounted for.
Sir, Nitish this side.
Yeah.
Sir, as you said that like frequency should not be much varied. Okay, but if
Right.
we take example of a run-through power plant, which are based on river stream, so there the speed cannot be like same throughout. Like there can be seasonal variations or something like that. So how can we manage that? Because poles so will be constant. So if
Correct.
speed, so how do we manage that?
Right. So even if you talk about a run-of-river plant, as you're mentioning, so usually you'll see these run-of-river plants also, they don't have a big reservoir, they don't have a dam for sure,
Yes.
but still they have a small pondage. Okay, so there's a
Okay.
diversion weir which you put, and through that you divert the stream, and then you feed the, there's a 4-bay tank, a desiltation tank, and then you feed the water to the penstock. Through the penstock you feed it to the turbine. So idea is that there is a small pondage which is maintained. So because we want to have the velocity of the water hitting the turbines, that has to be constant, that has to be maintained constant. If you cannot ensure that, then you will have to shut down the plant.
Okay.
So that can't be compromised upon. So there are arrangements for that. You have a diversion weir, then you have a desiltation tank, then a 4-bay tank, and then the penstock takes the water to the hydro turbine.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, Pramod.
Sir, we know that some mechanical degree is the angle between the poles, but what is electrical degree, sir? Can you please explain?
Electrical degree, as I said, is in terms of the voltage and current waveform which is generated. Okay, so I'll just draw it out. So whenever we have, because we said, as we discussed, that this is a AC machine, and so as we discussed, this is an AC machine, and the voltage and also the current generated will have a this type of sinusoidal profile. So as you can think of, as you can understand, basically is that as the time varies, there is this variation. So this time variation can also be looked at in terms of the angular variation. So this one full cycle, this point here, this corresponds to 2 pi radians or 360 degrees. This corresponds to pi radians or 180 degree, and let's call this as 0. So this is the voltage or the current waveform, the voltage waveform, let's say, which is being generated. So what I'm saying is that when you have this machine like this, let's say this is the encasing, and then you have a rotor here, which for simplicity I'm just drawing as a salient pole, and that too as a north-south 2-pole rotor. So, and then you have this is the stator here, which has the winding in it. So the winding has been housed in the stator. So what I'm saying is that as you rotate this guy, this rotor rotates, then in one full revolution across each coil, this north and south pole pair passes only once. So that's why the equivalent, when you convert it to the waveform of the generated voltage and current, what you'll see is that in one revolution you generate this one. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of electrical degrees. Electrical degree means one full cycle of voltage waveform generated is equal to 360 degrees. So in this case, simple case, when you have 2 poles, one full rotation of the rotor is generating just one full cycle of the voltage waveform. So that's the 360 electrical degrees. In case this becomes a 4-pole rotor, so you have another pair of poles going here, another north and south. So when you have more poles, then they go alternate. So north, south, then north, and then south. So now in this case, what you see is that even if the rotor rotates by half revolution, two pole pairs pass across one conductor, one particular coil. So what you see is that in half rotation, half mechanical rotation, that means 180-degree mechanical is the rotation which is occurring. But this is generating, this is equivalent to producing one full cycle of the waveform of the voltage or current. So that is, it is equivalent to 360-degree electrical. That's all. So basically this theta E is equal to 2 into theta M. That is how it is. Okay, does that help, Pramod, or clears your confusion?
Yes, sir. Sir, but one more question.
Yeah.
So when we know that formula that electrical degree equal to poles upon 2 by into mechanical degree. So whenever we put the mechanical degree in that formula and we apply that poles, then always we get electrical degree equal to 180 degree. Or not?
No, I didn't get that. What you say? What to say?
Sir, if we take mechanical degree is 90.
Okay.
If we have 4 poles.
Okay.
And poles is 4, then when we put in that formula, then we get 180 degree electrical degree.
Correct.
And if we change the poles according to that, mechanical degree is also changed, then also we get the electrical degree equal to 180.
No. Don't confuse it that way. See, it only means, it's not like
Hello?
changing the. Yeah, who is that?
Hello, sir. It's Harshvardhan, sir. Actually, I'm sorry to interfere, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, actually, I'm in the hospital right now, so may I take leave, sir? Actually,
What happened? Are you okay?
no, sir. I'm okay, sir. Actually, I'm with my mom. So,
Okay. Okay, no problem. Okay.
thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, so Pramod, please don't confuse that way. See, it's very simple. Only thing, what this means is, it's not that you're changing mechanical degree and you're changing pole, nothing like that. See, it's very simple. You designed a machine with a given number of poles. So now what it means, what this equation means is that in a given time period, as the machine rotates, in any given time period, if you take 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 millisecond, whatever time you take, in a given time period, there will be some rotation of the rotor because it is coupled with the shaft to a prime mover and that is rotating. So you choose some given time interval, whatever you choose. You choose 10 millisecond or you choose 10 second or 1 hour or whatever you choose. You choose one time interval. So in that time interval, the rotor shaft will have rotated by some mechanical degrees. So what this equation only says is that in the same time interval, if the rotor shaft rotates by theta Sm degrees, the number of electrical degrees, that means in terms of the waveform of the voltage and current generated, that will be equal to P by 2 into theta Sm. That's it.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Does that clear your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other doubt?
No, sir.
Okay. So let's move ahead. So this is the one fundamental equation which is always true for synchronous generators, and based on this we choose based on whatever synchronous speed we can afford to have in a given situation, based on that we design the machine for a given number of poles. Okay, so the only interaction is between these two frequencies. Okay, another important thing is the internal generated voltage of a synchronous generator. So as you recall that we discussed in the first class also, the basic equation for power is that power is voltage into current. Okay, so whenever we have electrical power which is being generated, there will always be these two quantities. One will be the voltage, another will be the current, and the product of these two will give the power. And I'm especially telling this for people from non-electrical background. Please always remember these have different units. So your power will have units of watt, kilowatt, or megawatt. Voltage will have unit of volts, and current will have unit of amperes. Many times I see that students, especially who are from maybe other backgrounds, not from electrical branch, they many times confuse between why we are calling sometimes wattage and voltage and what is the difference. So these are very separate quantities, and like one analogy is always given, just for easy understanding you can think of, is that if you look at a mechanical system, there is some flow of water is circulating. So then let's say there is one reservoir, there is second reservoir, and there is some height difference in the level of the water in the two, and there's a pipe which is connecting. So there will be a flow of water. So the speed of flow, at which speed, how many liters per minute is flowing from one tank to the other tank, that is equivalent to the current, because current is also nothing but coulombs per second. So how much charge is flowing per second, same way how much water is flowing per second. And voltage is equivalent to the height difference, the gradient difference. So if you have one reservoir at a higher level and at a lower level, and there's a pipe connecting the two, so only because the height difference is there, this water flow is there. Same way, there is a potential difference. This voltage is basically nothing but the potential difference. So when you create a potential difference across 2 points in a circuit, there is a flow of current. Okay. So voltage is the potential difference, which is the driving force for the flow of current, and how much work is actually done is nothing but the product of the potential difference into the current flowing. Okay, so these are very distinct things. I hope it should be clear to everyone. Okay, so we will look at these 2-3 things also in terms of a synchronous generator, that how much is the voltage generated and how it is governed, what is the power generated, and what is also the current. We'll look at these. So the primary thing is basically the voltage generated, because as we said, and I've been repeatedly telling you, and you might recall, is that this entire machine basically works. The basic fundamental principle behind this is the Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. Right? That is the fundamental principle behind this entire thing. And if you recall your basic physics, you will see that this law states that the EMF E, which is induced, is equal to minus. Minus indicates because the sign, because it is the generated EMF always opposes the cause, which is producing this thing, d phi by dt, where phi is the flux, n is the number of turns in that coil, and E is the EMF. So this is the fundamental equation which is governing this particular operation of this machine. So this flux, as it changes with time, that's why we are saying that it has to be changing with time. There has to be a relative motion. So the rate of change of flux is what determines the EMF which is induced. So basically, when you rotate the rotor, there is an EMF which is induced in the stator windings, the armature windings on the stator, and because those armature windings complete a circuit through, there is a power, it goes to an external circuit, there is a load which is being driven. So because the circuit is complete and a EMF or a potential difference has been created, there is a flow of current. So that is the fundamental idea. So let's look at this, that what is the internal generated voltage, because that is, as we understand by this principle, that is the primary quantity which is being used for the transfer of power from mechanical to electrical form, is the voltage. So that is a very important thing, that how much is this is the induced EMF or the internal generated voltage in a synchronous generator. And as this equation shows here, is that it depends upon 3 quantities. One is the flux in the machine, the phi is the flux. F is the frequency or speed of rotation, and NC is the number of coils, number of turns in coils of one phase. So that depends upon the machine's construction. Now, number of turns in coil, nothing but it means something like this here, is that suppose if you take, let's take one simple cylindrical rotor. Suppose you have a rotor like that, and so let's say there is, I mean, as in a cylindrical rotor, as you said, there will be slots here, and you will have the winding in this. So this, let's say there is a conductor here, and opposite side here behind this will also be another conductor, and these 2 conductors, now let's say they are connected like that. I mean, try to visualize. I mean, I'm not able to provide that. Like, there is this conductor which is going in the slot here, another conductor going in the slot. So ultimately they'll be connected, right? It's going as a coil. So for every 2 conductors, there will be 1 turn. Okay, so this is known as the turn of a coil. So that's how we measure the how many number of conductors are there. They are measured by the number of turns in the coil. Okay, so for every 2 conductor pieces in a cylindrical rotor, there will be 1 turn. So this is the NC here, and this is nothing but depending upon the machine's construction. So depending upon how many slots you have put, how many windings you are putting there, what type of construction you are doing, that is the machine's construction component. So now let's also look at how this is coming, how this equation. This is also very simple and very fundamental. Let's look at this. So here for your illustration purpose, it shows 3 coils. Again, same AA dash, BB dash, and CC dash. So these are the 3 coils, and each coil is having NC number of turns. Okay. So this AA dash coil has NC number of turns, BB dash is also having NC number of turns, and CC dash is also having NC number of turns. So each coil is corresponding to 1 phase. So for the 3 coils, each of NC turns, they are placed around the rotor magnetic field, and as the rotor rotates, there will be voltage induced in each of them. And the equation governing here, so we will come to this actually, I mean, in a short while, that this flux, the flux which is generated, the flux which is produced in the field winding, that is directly proportional to the field current. Okay, and in this case, this is a DC current, as we said. So what you will generate will also be a DC flux, but the thing is that this is rotating. Okay? This is rotating. So overall, if we look at the profile of flux in this air gap, there is, this is the rotor. The inner circle is the rotor, and the outer one having this coils or conductors is the stator. So there is this air gap in between the two. So if you look at the profile of the air gap, due to the rotation of the rotor, what you will see is that you can write this flux in again in a sinusoidal form. So let's say NC phi max. Okay. So directly you can just write as phi max sine omega t. And why this is coming into picture is because though it is a DC flux, but because it is rotating in the this particular air gap. And so that is the flux which is being established. But also, if you see here, we are talking about 3 coils, and these coils are having a 180-degree phase difference. So whenever we have a coil, there is a term. So this is just the flux which is there. Then there is a term which we call as the flux linkage. Flux linkage of a coil. So now if I look at it with respect to, from the point of view of a given coil, suppose I look at it from the point of view of this coil of AA dash. So what AA dash will see is that the flux is steady, it is not varying, but with respect to a coil, with respect to let's say AA dash, what I'll see is that this is how the flux will be appearing to the coil AA dash. That it is sort of varying sinusoidally, because the rotor pole is going round and round. So like the frame of reference thing. So don't look at it from the frame of reference of the rotor, look at it from the frame of reference of the coil. So if I'm sitting here at this coil A dash, what I'll see is that the flux for me will appear to be having a sinusoidal rotation, because though the magnitude is constant, but it is going around. So once it, let's say the north pole I call as the positive peak, then the south pole of the rotor is a negative peak. So once the north pole passes, it is like the maximum flux is passing. Then it reduces gradually. There is a point of 0, and then it grows. And as the south pole passes across this coil, that is equivalent to the negative peak. So please understand that the flux is still DC, but this is with respect to the point of view of a coil. So from a coil's perspective, the flux will appear to be going in this particular fashion. And because these 3 coils, they are having 180-degree phase difference. So if I write phi AA dash like that, then I can write for phi BB dash. Now BB dash is this particular coil. So you have AA dash here and then BB dash here. And BB dash, as you can see, is having So if we take this particular going in this direction, suppose A dash A and then CC dash and then BB dash. So BB dash is having like 240 degree, right? If you take it going from here, from A to C to B. So it is 240 degree ahead, or other way you can say 120 degree behind the phase sequence. So for phi BB dash, I can write this as phi max sine omega t minus 120 degree. And same way, if with respect to this coil AA dash, C is another 120 degree ahead, or if I go back, it is 240 degree behind. So because I'm taking AA dash as the reference, so I can write phi CC dash as the phi max sine of omega t minus 240 degree. So that will be the flux appearing for each coil. So from the frame of reference of each coil, that is how the flux will appear, and we are defining AA dash as the frame of reference. So that's why BB dash is 120 degree behind, CC dash is 240 degree behind. And one more thing is missing still, is that when we say the word flux linkage, then for each coil turn, this is the flux linking. So for the total coil, as we said, the coil is having total NC number of turns. So the total flux linkage will be NC into this. So this NC gets multiplied at each of these three places. So that is how, what is the total flux linkage with each coil. Okay. And now the last step in this is that, as we said, the induced EMF is nothing but minus N. N is the number of turns of the coil, d phi by dt. So what we'll do, if we just do this d phi by dt for each three of these, what you'll get will be something like this. So for EAA dash, the derivative of this, what I find is that, I mean, this N I'm put here. So if you take the total flux linkage, then you don't, I mean, the N will not come two times. Either you multiply it in the flux linkage. So if you take the total flux linkage of the coil, then this N won't appear here. If you're just talking about one turn of the coil, then you'll account for N here. So either way, you put it here or there. So if I take d by dt, this becomes NC phi max omega sine omega t. So that is what we are getting. If omega max, this phi max, they are just calling as phi. And the same way, EBB dash, this will be NC phi max omega sine omega t minus 120 degree. And same way for ECC dash, NC phi max omega will come out sine omega t minus 240 degree. So that's how you get these three phase voltages. So the maximum value of the voltage is same, NC phi omega, and these three voltages are having a 120 degree phase separation, electrical degrees phase separation in the generated coils, so in the stator coils. So that is how finally you get this three phase voltage profile. So this will be VA dash, let's say, and then you have minus 120. So this is VBB dash, and this is VCC dash. So that is how you get this thing. Any question on this? Please feel free to ask.
Excuse me, sir. Udit, this side.
Yes, Udit, tell me.
Sir, I want to just ask about the significance of this phase difference, sir.
Significance means what? In what terms you want to ask?
Sir, I want to know means what are the advantages of providing this multiple phase in any generator? If we'll just simple compare it with the single phase.
So that I told in one earlier class also. I'll just briefly tell you here again. Is that the power in a single phase circuit is given by this VI cos phi. So this is for a single phase circuit. So I'm calling it as P1, and it will have two wires. Okay. For a three phase circuit, you will have three wires, and now here there is a line voltage. That means the voltage across these two, each pair of conductors. And same way here also we were defining by the way power that way, the voltage that way only. That let's say one is the neutral and the line. So how much is the voltage difference? But in this three-phase system, we are talking about a three-phase, three-wire system. So there is no neutral. There are only three wires. And what you find here is that the power flowing in these three conductors together, we call it as P3, is root 3 and this we call as VL, line voltage, IL, the line current going in each of the lines, multiplied by let's say cos theta. I should put, I think, phi, because we are using for the flux. So I'm putting this as theta. So this is one of the simple reasons you can understand is that for the same, if you see you are just increasing one more conductor, one more extra conductor you are putting here, 50% increase in the conductor material, but the power transfer which is occurring is root 3 times higher, so 73% higher, right? 1.73 of the here. So that is one simple reason. So that's why for every bulk power generation, transmission or distribution or consumption, whenever it is in bulk, then we use this three-phase system. For simple isolated small consumers and all, only single phase is there.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, I am Prashant. I have some doubts.
Yes, Prashant.
Sir, in the slides, you whatever you shown that this is for induced EMF.
Right.
The derivations are for induced EMF. But
Correct.
in the board, you wrote that this is for phi derivation. You told like the same. You go to sir the slides. There it is written, sir, induced EMF EA, EBB dash, ECC dash. That is for NC phi omega sin omega t. But if we see the board on wherever you discussed, if we consider phi A dash is NC phi max sin omega t, for the induced EMF will be minus N d phi by dt. If you do d phi by dt, it will be cos omega t, na?
Acha, that way you are saying. Okay, so see, yeah, okay. Technically speaking, okay, that way it is okay. So, but either way, I mean, then let's say I'll define this as cos omega t. See, because see, here I'm not going into that particular detail. You can always change that particular thing. That can change.
That
So
means,
the
sir,
only thing,
we can take that phi as a cos omega t.
right, right. Right. So I'll come to that. So the thing is here, please try to understand. I'm just talking about in a conceptual term. I'm saying is that what I'm saying is that you look at it from the point of view of the a given coil. So for a given coil, if you see this rotor is rotating, as the north pole passes over this coil, you say that it is the flux is at its peak. Then as the north pole has passed on and the rotor is still rotating, the flux starts deteriorating, and then comes so there will be one point which will be the between the north and south pole, exactly between, so that will be a 0 point, and then further the rotor is still rotating, so it will still go down in the negative direction, and then there will be the south pole passing over the coil, and in that case when the south pole is passing, then you are having the negative axis or the negative maximum, so that will be there. And then again same way it will repeat. So my idea was, okay, you can call it that way. The thing here is that what I wanted to explain to you is that you have to understand that why this sinusoidal variation is coming. Now cos or sine is just a relative thing. You can it basically depends upon where you choose the your axis for the zero crossing. So what basically it will do is that it will have a 90-degree phase shift. So if I go with sine omega t, then also no problem. Then I can write that this EA dash which I am generating is nothing but NC phi max omega sine of omega t minus pi by 2. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay? Is there any issue with that?
No.
So I'm not deriving this thing. They have put something, and as you recall, when I was discussing, I was not looking also at the equation. So the idea is that basically we want to have the conceptual understanding. The mathematical equation can be adopted. There will be 90-degree phase shift.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so that is how we get the generated EMF. Now, as those from electrical background definitely know that. For others, I'll just help you recall, though you also must have studied, but you might have forgotten or something, is that whenever we, whenever you have a AC voltage waveform, you have that type of sinusoidal relationship. But when you say like it is 230 volt or 440 volt or no 1 kilovolt or whatever, you quote a value of the voltage, that is not the maximum, rather it is the RMS value. Okay, so that's why this NC phi omega which we are having in this equation, that is nothing but the maximum EMF. And to get the RMS value, the root mean square of any sinusoidal varying quantity, it will be basically the Vmax by root 2. And therefore, the RMS voltage of the voltage in each phase is given by, if you divide this by root 2, you get root 2 pi NC phi f. So which is same as the equation we started with. So that is how the EMF is obtained. Okay. So this is the final equation for the internally generated EMF. And one word of caution here is that this is the internal EMF which is generated in the stator winding. So this you are not accessing actually. This is not accessible because it is inside the machine. What you'll access out, we'll come to that in the next class. Now the time is over. That will be different. And also another thing about this is that this is the per phase quantity. Okay, it is in the each phase. So as we said, there are these 3 coils, one coil for each phase, AA dash, BB dash, CC dash. So this is for the coils in a given phase. And it will depend, the voltage on the terminal of the machine will depend that how these phases are interconnected. So like say, so those from electrical background will definitely be knowing this. For others, a brief thing is that you can connect these 3 phases in one of these 2 configurations, either in a delta configuration, so you have V1, V2 and V3 like that, or in a star type configuration, V1, V2 and V3. So when you have this delta type configuration, you have the lines going like that. So the 3 junction points are connected to each line, and in this case, the terminal ends are connected to each line. So for a 3-phase thing. So as you can see here, the line voltage which is at the terminals is same as the phase voltage. So between 2 lines there is only one voltage. Whereas here, if you see, the line voltage is a phasor sum of 2 voltages which are themselves at 120 degree apart. So this case, this VL becomes root 3 of V1 or V2 because we are taking the same voltage in each phase. Okay, so that is one more thing, that the terminal voltage will be depending upon what way the windings are connected. So if the machine, that's why it says if the machine is star connected, the terminal voltage will be root 3 times EA, and if the machine is delta connected, then the terminal voltage will be equal to EA. Will be different depending upon. Okay, so that is it for today's class. Any question you have?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so that's good enough. Okay, then we'll end here, and tomorrow we have the class again from 10 to 11 to compensate for yesterday's class.
Okay.
Okay, then.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.